Most Americans never learn why their paycheck buys less every year. Before the US became a global superpower, money worked very differently. One decision in 1971 changed the life of every American today. Groceries, gas, rent, everything seems to cost more than yesterday. But the story begins long before the supermarket checkout. Colonial America ran on coins, barter, and trust, not printed dollars. The 1770s brought revolution but also new financial uncertainty. Early bankers argued fiercely about paper money and hard currency. The 1792 Coinage Act tried to stabilize the fledgling economy. Gold and silver defined value in ways Americans barely understand today. The California gold rush brought sudden wealth and sudden inflation. People who struck gold often saw their fortunes vanish overnight. The federal government grew, and so did the need for a central bank. The Federal Reserve was born to control money and credit. It promised stability but introduced new layers of complexity. For decades, the dollar remained tied to gold, keeping inflation in check. World wars and economic depressions tested America's financial resilience. The Great Depression left millions unemployed and broke trust in banks. New Deal policies reshaped government oversight of money. Americans learned that money could be manipulated, controlled, and mismanaged. By the 1960s, the U.S. economy boomed, but pressures grew quietly. The cost of living crept up faster than wages for many families. In 1971, President Nixon ended the gold standard. This single act freed the dollar from physical constraints forever. It was a move meant to stabilize international trade, but Americans felt inflation. The Federal Reserve gained unprecedented control over money supply. Credit became easier to access, but prices slowly climbed. Dollar dominance grew globally, with domestic purchasing power eroded. Americans watched grocery bills rise while salaries stagnated. Housing markets began to shift, leaving first-time buyers struggling. Student loans exploded as college became essential but expensive. Middle-class families felt squeezed between wages and rising costs. Healthcare, education, and rent took larger chunks of monthly income. Interest rates fluctuated, making mortgages both a lifeline and a trap. Inflation became more than numbers, it became lived experience. Even small purchases, like a cup of coffee, told the story of rising costs. The Federal Reserve attempted to balance growth and inflation carefully. Bank policies rewarded some and left others behind. Americans increasingly relied on credit cards to maintain lifestyle. Debt became normal, almost invisible yet dangerously accumulating. Wages grew, but not fast enough to match rising necessities. Rental crises left families in overcrowded apartments or far from work. The middle class, once robust, began shrinking quietly. Globalization added pressure as American manufacturing jobs disappeared. Outsourcing reduced domestic wages while products remained costly. Oil shocks and recessions reminded Americans how fragile stability was. The dollar strengthened internationally, but Americans felt weaker at home. Every economic decision, even small, rippled through daily life. The end of gold tied money to trust in government and banking systems. That trust has been tested repeatedly over decades of crisis. By the 2000s, everyday Americans noticed a disconnect between income and lifestyle. Banks, markets, and policies shaped reality more than personal effort ever could. Savings accounts offered low returns while costs continued climbing. Booms in tech and real estate promised wealth but left many behind. Families juggled multiple jobs just to keep up with inflation. Retirees found pensions insufficient to cover healthcare and housing. Young adults delayed marriage, kids, and homeownership due to financial pressure. Student debt loomed like a generational shadow. Homebuyers struggled to compete with investors and rising interest rates. The middle-class dream became aspirational, not achievable for many. Food deserts and healthcare deserts reminded Americans inequality persisted. Even essential services felt the weight of rising costs. Americans increasingly wondered why prosperity seemed out of reach. Financial literacy became crucial but often inaccessible. Credit scores dictated opportunities, deepening inequality silently. Policy decisions from decades past continue to echo today. Global crises, pandemics, and wars add more pressure to American wallets. Inflation, wages, and debt remain entangled in a complex web. Families spend more time budgeting than enjoying financial freedom. Students delay careers or settle for lower pay due to debt pressures. Housing markets reward investors but punish first-time buyers. Retirees face impossible choices between medicine and daily living. Young adults often rent longer, saving little for the future. Every dollar stretches thinner as costs climb faster than paychecks. The dream of upward mobility feels increasingly distant, yet Americans persist, finding ways to survive and adapt. Side hustles, gig economy work, and careful budgeting become lifelines. Policy debates rage, but personal impact remains immediate and intimate. Even ordinary decisions like where to live carry financial weight. Families make sacrifices quietly, often invisible to outsiders. The price of everything forces Americans to reconsider priorities. Debt, credit, and inflation shape dreams more than talent or effort. Middle-class pressure defines lifestyles, choices, and mental health. Yet resilience emerges in communities navigating rising costs together. Financial literacy becomes both survival skill and empowerment tool. The dollar's strength abroad contrasts with struggles at home. Americans learn to stretch every dollar creatively and cautiously. Even small victories like paying off debt feel monumental. The cycle of rising costs persists but can inspire action. Generations adapt, innovate, and challenge the status quo. Economic lessons of the past inform the choices of today. Understanding history reveals why costs rise and opportunities shrink. Families share stories, passing knowledge and caution to children. Financial decisions, once obscure, now carry life-altering weight. Economic awareness becomes an act of self-preservation and hope. The past decades offer both cautionary tales and lessons. Policy, banking, and human behavior intertwine to shape American life. Rising costs are a reality, but so is American adaptability. The future will test resilience, innovation, and financial literacy. Choices today define stability for generations tomorrow.